Appetit called Butcher and the Beast a giant middle finger to all other cookbooks. It is the cookbook that refuses to tone it down, and her technique for whiskey dry aging was recognized by Michelin. To welcome Chef Angie Mar.
Thank you, Chef. So, Chef, first of all, thank you so much for your words.
Oh, my pleasure.
It's so kind of you, and I just to be mentioned in the same stratosphere as Bourdain and Marco is such an honor. So, thank you so much. Thank you. All right, guys. So, hi. So I'm so thrilled to be here. I absolutely, I've only been here like a couple of times. I went to school back in the day at the French Culinary Institute. But I know a lot of the chefs that are still here today. They were actually my chefs when I was you. So I got to see a lot of really familiar faces, which was really nice. So when I do these demos, I like for things to be really interactive. So please, we're obviously gonna have like a Q&A session later on, but as I'm cooking and as I'm doing things, if you guys have questions, definitely just ask, and we'll talk as we go. You guys want to come up here and actually look and get a closer look of anything that I'm doing, please just come up and we'll go from there. All right, so Chef mentioned some pretty amazing figures in the culinary industry, like Bourdain, like Marco, and I'm gonna cook a dish for you guys today that we're actually doing at the restaurant right now. I've got a really hard focus on classic cuisine at my restaurant, Le Bee. So I'm over in the West Village, just West 4th and West 12th. I'm classically French trained, but I'm Chinese, and my grandfather really had a foothold in Japanese culture. So a lot of my cuisine is very classic French, but you'll find a lot of flavors from my Asian heritage woven into the cuisine. So it's very modern when you think about it. All right, so tell me, does anybody in this room know who Pierre Kaufman is? No? Yes, you do? Okay, great. So are you familiar with his famous trotters dish? That's what we're going to be cooking today, you guys. We're going to be making stuffed trotters a la Kaufman. So this recipe, so Pierre Kaufman was Pierre Kaufman he's still alive, but he was a 3-star chef in London. The dish that I'm going to be making you guys today was actually invented by him. It's not like classic escoffier. This was like a pure Pierre Kaufman dish, and it was first written in 1977. For 25 years, there was never a written recipe for this dish. 25 years. He had a 3-star restaurant called Le Tante Claire in London, and Marco Pierre White. You guys know who Marco Pierre White is, right? From White Heat, you guys know. He had Harvey's, another 3-star restaurant in London. So Marco actually went to go work at the Tante Claire so he could steal this recipe because there was no written recipe back then. Then he put it on the menu at Harvey's, and then Gordon Ramsay, before Hell's Kitchen, the like OG Gordon Ramsay, he actually went to go work for Marco, learned this recipe, and then put it on his menu as well. So this is what we're going to be cooking today. This is like kind of a fabled dish, and I'm really excited about it. Can you actually grab me the pork trotter out of the? I got it. So I'm really excited about this dish because this is it's truly one of my favorite things. I used to work at the Spotted Pig before I had my own restaurant. Do you guys know that restaurant, the Spotted Pig? Yeah. All right. So April Bloomfield was really kind of a pioneer in bringing British gastro cuisine to America. So I have a trotter here. All right. And I'm just going to debone it. So we are going to be deboning this. We're going to make some chicken mousse, some sweetbreads, and we're going to stuff this, braise it, and I'm going to glaze it for you guys. So any questions so far? Do you guys like trotters? Yeah? You never had it before? Do you like pork? Yeah. Okay, what's your favorite cut on a pork? Wait, I'm sorry, speak up. Uh-huh.
All day, really. I make it every Thanksgiving. It's very big in Hispanic or Puerto Rican.
Awesome. He's like, yeah. So guys, just so you know, this is John Riley. He is actually an alumni of this school. John did his externship with me at the Beatrice Inn. And he's actually been with, how long have you been with me, John? Since 2019, yeah. So since 2019, John's been with me. And we just got back from Sonoma. Do you guys know who Charlie Palmer is? Yeah? Okay. So Charlie Palmer had, for those of you that don't know who Charlie Palmer is, Charlie Palmer had a restaurant called Oriole. It used to be on the Upper East Side in a townhouse. And then he actually moved it to Midtown. But that restaurant, he's got what? I think he's got 13 Michelin. He's just an absolute legend. And that was actually, Oriole was one of my first fine dining experiences in New York. Because when I was going to school, I was working. Back then, I think minimum wage was like $4.50 an hour. It was something crazy. So I saved all my money, and I used to save my money whilst I was going to school, and I would take whatever money I could save, and I would go eat at La Bernadette. I would go to Oriole. I would try to go to Per Se, but it took me months to save money back then. But that's really how I honed my palate. So we were actually just in Sonoma cooking with Charlie. Coincidentally, we were cooking for his Pigs and Pinot thing that he does every year to raise money for people like you, for like the next culinary generation. But the really cool thing is I sit on the board of Mentor with Thomas Keller and Danielle Boulud. And every year there are grants given away to about 20 people across the US, 20 young rising stars in the US. And with those grants, the people who receive them, they actually get to go on like fully your living expenses, your wages, everything. It's all paid for. And you get to go to any restaurant in the world to go stage for 3 months. And John actually just was awarded the scholarship. So congratulations. It was really exciting. So I think, where are you going? Japan, right? Yeah, John's going to be leaving me for a few months. He's going to Japan. Where are you going? What's on your list? So yeah, John's got a list of like 2- and 3-star places in Tokyo. But it's really exciting. So, it's something that when you guys are like further down the road, I think you've got to be in the industry 3 years, right? Yeah, 3 years and a year consecutive with your current employer. But when you guys are further down the road, definitely look at it, because it's a really, really good opportunity for you guys to go spend some time doing some stuff. Hi, Rick. Yeah. This is the right trotter today. We're doing as a right hind leg. Yeah. I actually prefer the back legs. I prefer the back legs, but yes, you could. No. No. The trotters are really great. And for me, I don't know about you guys, but I love offal. I love offal meats. So do you guys like offal meats? Yeah? What's your favorite? You're nodding your head, so I feel like you're... Huh? Sorry. The liver? I love the liver. It's the best. You like foie de veau? Veal liver? Beef liver? No? So what kind of liver do you like? Chicken liver is great. Do you like foie gras? Oh my God, we got to fix that. All right, so you guys will have to come to Restaurant Le Bee, because it's for us, it's like foie gras is like a full lifestyle. It's like foie gras, caviar, and truffles is my favorite. All right, so I'm just gonna take this skin. I'm peeling it all the way back, okay? Just to this knuckle here and right here. Do you see? Can you guys see that on the screens? So there's a knuckle right here, and I'm gonna cut the right where like these thumbs are, because we're gonna keep it, because I'm gonna stuff this, but we're gonna keep basically the whole thing intact. So it's gonna look, when we present it, it actually looks like a full trotter, which is fun. Now, how far are you guys into your schooling right now? Have you guys gone through charcuterie classes, butchering classes yet? You're on day 2. Welcome to the rest of your life. Wow. All right, that's cool. And so day 2 of school, that's exciting. And what are your plans for later on? What do you want? He's just good. Well, you're going to school now, so maybe you'll have the edge up on him, right? That's the goal. All right. And what about you ladies? Okay. Great. That's so exciting. And then what about you? You know what, you guys? It's totally good to not, it's totally fine to not know. I mean, it took me a really, really long time whilst I was in school to kind of figure out what I was doing. And even once I did, it changed. So it always changes, and it changes based on what you learn. All right, so do you guys see this tendon right here? I'm just gonna cut just so this is loose, and see this whole foot staying intact. And has anybody else gone through butchery class yet? No? Yes? Yeah? Do you enjoy it? Yeah. It's one of my favorite things. Charcuterie too? No, not yet. It's charcuterie, butchery. It's a lot of fun. It's like one of my absolute favorite things. I spent time there's a restaurant. It's actually still around, but there's a restaurant in Williamsburg called Diner and Marlowe and Sons. Do you guys know it? No? It's pretty cool. That's the kitchen that I like really grew up in. And it had its own whole animal butchering program, which was really, really great. So I learned everything there about meat, about fish, all the things. And then I went and butchered in Paris for a little while, which is a completely different style, which I'm sure Chef will tell you. Hervé, right? So you know what? I actually really love butchering fish. It's, flat. I love, we only really do flat fish at my restaurant. I just love them. So, like just turbot is like my absolute favorite, for sure. But we do a little bit of salmon too, just because I'm originally from Seattle. So that's, so we do a little bit of that too. All right, so guys, this is the hardest part of it, is just because right now I'm separating the joints, but I'm trying not to break the skin. And once we get through, it'll just come out. It really depends what I'm butchering. I have like a nice collection of Japanese knives that I really love for my fish. This is Japanese, but this is it's really, really like heavy duty. And this is just kind of like my go-to knife when I'm doing stuff like this, which is always a pain. All right, so tell me, because you were the only one who knew about Chef Kaufman, so tell me about that. Amazing. That's really cool. And have you always wanted to, you've always wanted to be a cook? Very cool. All right, guys. So this is your bone, a little bit of meat there. And then we are left with this. Okay. So I'm going to put this here. Have you guys started cooking sous vide, or are you guys cooking old school, like braising old school right now? What are you guys doing? Huh? You're about to do sous vide? Okay, cool. So at the restaurant, you know, we do a lot of sous vide cooking, and honestly, like I love sous vide because it's, for me, it's just, you know, lower food costs, nothing goes to waste, so it's like it's really nice. But this, I'm just going to show you. We're going to do it old school today, but I'll also give you the recipe in case you guys ever would like to cook it sous vide. So I have my mirepoix. So I'm going to start with carrots, and then we're going to go celery and shallots. For this, I like a lot of mirepoix because when we're dealing with things like the trotters, we don't want it to stick because the skin is very sticky, okay? So as we braise it, we want the mirepoix to sit below, so your trotter is like on top, okay? So John's gonna actually start breaking down the sweetbreads because we're gonna make a chicken mousse, and we're also going to fill it with sweetbreads and raw mushrooms. Do you guys enjoy sweetbreads? Do you enjoy sweetbreads? Yeah? Best. They're my favorite, actually. Sweetbreads and tripe. Under. All right. So John's just cleaning the sweetbreads right now. And as you can see, he's just going to take the membrane off of it. We want to do that so it doesn't like seize up and get really tough. When sweetbreads are done right and they're cooked perfectly, they really end up being like, I always tell people that haven't had them before, like a little scared to try it, that it's like the best chicken nugget you've ever had. It's a thymus gland of veal. Okay. So I'm just going to get a little bit of color on this. We're not going to go too brune. There's a lot of alcohol that goes into this. So I have port, I have Armagnac, and I also have a bit of red wine. So we're going to do all of it. And actually, while this is going, I'm just going to make my mousse. You guys done chicken mousseline before? No? It's really easy. I know it always sounds very complicated, but it's actually not. So I have chicken breast, which we've just cut up to be maybe like 1-inch chunks. I'm going to use a couple of egg whites and a little bit of cream, some salt and pepper. Okay. Can I get you to slide over just a touch? Thank you. Thanks. So just the egg whites. Do you guys smell that? Yeah. So you can smell it, right? It's getting a little brune, but not crazy. All right. So I'm going to start with just the chicken and the egg whites. And we're just going to put it in the Roboku. I'm going to season it in a minute, but we're just going to let it start to go. I'm going to stream in just a little bit of cream. and a little bit of salt. So this is just like a basic farce. Thank you. You guys can see in here, right? So you see how it's like really, really fine. I'm just gonna scrape the bowl down. I'm gonna let it keep going for a minute. All right, so my veg looks great. I'm gonna start with the Armagnac. Flambe it, just to burn off the liquor. And we're gonna add port, some red wine, and I'm just gonna bring this up to a simmer, and then I'm gonna reduce it just a touch. All right. You guys have any questions so far? You guys are a quiet group. You have a question. What were you going to say? No? I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Yeah, so here's the deal. Like, I'm giving you guys right now, we're going to do it the old school way, okay? Because I always, you know, I cook so many things sous vide now that I'm like always really thrilled when I get to braise something not in sous vide. But just to give you an idea, this recipe takes a lot of booze, like a lot of booze, okay? So for, let's say, 4 trotters, it would be almost like 3 bottles of alcohol. So when I cook it sous vide, I can make my reduction, cool the reduction down, and then cryovac it with the trotter. And instead of getting 4 out of that liquid that I would need if I traditionally braised it, I'm actually getting 12 in the sous vide because it requires less product. So from a cost perspective, and when you guys are looking at this, right, because we can all, you know, cooking's great, but we have to be able to balance our books, right? So when you look at it from a cost perspective, it's actually better for me cooking sous vide for this recipe especially than it is for me to do it the old school way. Even if I enjoy it more. Yes. Is there any? No, there is not a difference in taste. Yeah, there's not a difference in taste. It actually, for us, you know, we save time, we save money. And for us, it's really, to be honest with you, just kind of like a matter of convenience. So that's it. All right. So thank you. So as you can see, I've got this coming up to a simmer right now. It's going to reduce a little bit. I'm going to pop our mousse just in the fridge, just so it stays cold. And then we're going to start to work on our sweetbreads that John portioned. All right. So notice how I haven't salted anything yet. Okay. I am going to season this, but especially on the sweetbreads, I actually salt after, which is going to be very counterintuitive. But when you salt especially things like sweetbreads ahead of time, the skin starts to seize up and it changes the dynamic of it versus seasoning after, which is what I prefer to do. All right. So I'm just going to add a little bit of chicken stock to this. But you guys see how the veg is taking up the whole bottom of this, right? So our trotters are not going to touch the base of it. So This pot, like we would have enough, let's say you'd have enough room for maybe like 2 more trotters, so maybe 3 all day. But I like to keep it whole, okay? And at this point, if you guys were gonna sous vide it, we would take this, we would reduce it like all the way down, so it was like almost like sticky, and then we would chill it down, so it was like gelatin. And I would put this trotter with about 145 grams of liquid into the sous vide bag. I would cryo it, and then I would sous vide it for 2 hours at like 200 degrees Fahrenheit, okay? And then we would go into an ice bath. Or you can do this. We can just go straight on top, okay? And then we would cover it with foil, and it would go in the oven for 2 hours. And if you were going to do this method and like do old school way, like if you're cooking it at your house, if you don't have a circulator at home, which I don't, so I'll braise things over the weekend. I would go 325 degrees in the oven. Okay. All right. So we'll just pop that in there. Okay. So now sweetbreads. So this recipe is like, it's a lot of work and there's a lot of different components, but really, really, truly worth it. So olive oil to start. Okay. Not yet. No. Thank you. So olive oil to start. And I want the pan to be hot because we are going to cook the sweetbreads all the way through. And again, no salt, but we are going to brown them. I'm going to cook a little more than I need, but just so we can cut into them and check them out, okay? But usually per trotter, I do like three nice pieces. And notice how I've got space, okay? So like, you know how when you cook mushrooms, when we want to get like really nice color on mushrooms, we don't crowd them, right? Because then they release water, they steam themselves, which is never fun. I want to leave space in between these so they can brown nicely. Just gonna swap out the board. All right. So if you guys would like, you guys could take the bone, you could add it into braising liquid, a stock, whatever you want later. I don't personally, I don't use this, but it makes a really delicious family meal. Any questions so far? Yeah.
What is your favorite dish?
You know what? That's a really good question. And I always say that, all of our food at the restaurant, they're like my children. It depends what day of the week it is and how they're behaving. So, so it really depends. But honestly, this one has been a really, really great dish lately. I just love it. So look, I've got some morel mushrooms here. These we did with dried morels, which we rehydrated. You can always do it with fresh as well. I've rinsed these several times, like 8 times. These are like the sandiest, most just dirty mushrooms ever. So I like to rinse this several times, okay? I'm going to use the larger ones. You can see I'm just cutting them across the bias. I like to use the larger ones for the mousse, and then I'll keep the smaller ones because if you guys want to garnish on the plate, we can use those. All right, let's check out our sweetbreads. So you can see they've just kind of like released themselves. So this is a little bit light in color. I'm gonna leave them. This is what we're looking for, like a nice golden brown, yeah? Because even though we're putting this in mousse, and even though it's gonna be on the inside of the pork trotter, we want it to be like really, really nice and appetizing. And I always think, you know, sweetbreads have the tendency to become a little gray, right? Nobody wants to eat that. So we're just gonna leave it alone. You notice I'm not shaking the pan. I'm not messing with it. I'm just gonna flip them and I'm gonna leave them, because if we don't leave them, they're not gonna get a Maillard reaction. They're gonna stick to the pan. We want that like nice Maillard reaction to get it like nice and crisp and have this gorgeous color on it, okay? And then in the interim, we've got our mushrooms here, and then we also have some shallots, which just a rough cut, just like a nice rough cut, which will go in here in a minute. I noticed I haven't seasoned this at all. Okay, we're gonna season it at the end. All right, so you can feel it. These are still little raw. They're pretty soft. You see, it's like this one's a little bit more cooked than this one. This one's like got a little bounce to it still. But we just want them to be cooked all, you know, almost all the way through, because then I'm going to add the shallots to them. All right. So I'm going to drop my heat now. I'm going to be almost medium low. We're going to add the shallots in. We're not really going to get color on our shallots. They're just going to be, we want them to be translucent. Okay. And then I'm going to save the mushrooms till a little bit later. And here's where I'm going to just start to mess with them just a touch, yeah? Any questions so far, guys? No? All right. I'm so sorry, what? These are veal. So there's veal, usually veal, lamb, and pork sweetbreads. At our restaurant, we use veal only. I like the flavor more. And I also think it's kind of fun because when you actually think about this dish, right, you've got pork trotters, you've got hen mousseline, and you've got veal sweetbreads. So you've got 3 different animals rolled into one, which is, for me, that's like, it's fun, you know? It's a lot of fun, actually. All right. So you can see my shallots are just starting to get a little bit translucent. I'm still on like medium low heat right now. And I'm just going to add my morels in. And we might, at this point, we might need to add like a touch of fat into it. You know, mushrooms like to suck up everything. So maybe we'll just do a little more olive oil. And you can also use clarified butter too. We cook a lot at the restaurant. We actually use less olive oil and we cook more with clarified butter because for me, it's like I just love the flavor. All right. So I think we're just about done with this. So I'm going to season it now. Okay. All right. So I'm going to remove this because we're actually going to fold this into the chicken mousse. And we've got to cool this down because at the end of the day, it's like, what is the mousse, right? What did we put in it? We have lean protein, we have cream, we have eggs, so you've got an emulsion, right? So if we don't cool this down, just the heat of our Just the heat of this is actually going to break the emulsion. All right. So I'm going to pop it just into the fridge to cool. And while that's cooling, I'm going to show you guys how to clean some trotters after we braise them. All right. Let's see. Hey, Amanda, can I have one of the trotters from John? The one that's not filled yet? No. Thank you. Oh, perfect. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So guys, after your trotter comes out, we're like obviously doing a little TV magic because this is a process that like takes a couple hours, the braising. But after the trotter comes out of your liquid, you should get this. Okay. So you can see it's shrunken up a lot, but we're cooking it at such a low temperature that it's not broken, and anything that is like a little bit broken, it'll be fine because we're going to add the mousse directly in. So you guys see this, right? You can see this right now. You see all the fat that's in there? We got to clean all of that off. Okay? Because what we want to be left is we want to have this like really gorgeous skin. So I'm just going to take a spoon and really gently scrape it. And you want to do this while this is hot. So like straight out of the braising liquid, which I know sometimes seems counterintuitive because like when I braise things, I like to let them sit and cool down in their own liquid. And you could totally do that. Like at the restaurant, we let these sit for like 20 minutes, kind of at ambient temperature, just so they can just have a little bit of a rest before we start cleaning them. You guys can all see what I'm doing, yeah? Okay. So you guys can see I'm just getting all of the fat and a little bit of the gristle, but I want to be really, really careful that we're not breaking any of the skin because it's very delicate, okay? And honestly, like if you push the spoon, it's going to go right through the skin at this point. All right. So we'll get rid of this. All right, so we have our cleaned trotter now, all right? So I'm gonna move it to the side. I'm right-handed, so it really depends, but I like things to be quite efficient. So I'm right-handed, so I will fill this from this side. So that's why I like to have the trotter on this side, okay? But right now we're gonna prep for all of our ingredients first. Do we have the foil? I need one more foil. Yeah. I don't know. They might have taken it away from me. Okay, guys. So this is part of the process that we do, which regardless of if we have... Oh, merci. Merci beaucoup. So regardless of if we have cooked the trotter sous vide or not, I always cook this ballotine in foil, all right? So the foil that you guys have is a little, I have it. So I know, Chef found it. I didn't see it. Thank you, Chef. I'm not wearing my glasses today, so I didn't see it. So you guys have the foil's pretty thin here, so I'm gonna do 2 layers, okay? And we're gonna roll this into a ballotine. You guys have combi ovens here, right? Yeah? So if you guys have combi ovens here, we would actually cook this in the combi oven, which is my preferred method to cook any mousses. So I usually do ours at 165 degrees on combi with 60% steam, and we cook it to an internal temperature of 131. Okay, I know that what you're thinking is that, okay, but there's chicken inside, you're cooking it to 131, which is below the 165 that we really should be, but we are going to finish this in the oven. Okay, so it will come up to temperature. All right. Am I too far over here? You guys can see everything? Yeah? Okay, cool. So I'm going to take a little bit of butter and we're just going to swipe it across the foil because remember you have pig skin and you don't want it to stick, right? It's very, very sticky because you saw all that gelatin and collagen and it will completely stick to this if we don't. All right. So there we go. Okay. Now let's get our mousse. All right. So we have our chicken mousseline. You could, I did not pass this through a tammy, but if you wanted to, you absolutely could. You could pass it through a tammy and you'd get this like really, really fine mousseline. I'm not going to do that today just for sake of time, but regardless, it's going to be delicious. All right, so we've got our sweetbreads, we have morels, we've got shallots. We're just going to mix everything in here. We're not going to use all of it. This is actually enough for maybe like 2 trotters. So we're not going to use all of it, but I just want everything to be a little sticky, okay? So this is your farce meat. And I'm sorry, did anybody say you guys have started charcuterie class yet? Not yet? Okay. So this is essentially a ballotine, okay? So when you guys get into charcuterie class, there's gallatines, ballotines. Gallatines are going to be chilled, all right, as something that's stuffed, rolled, chilled. And then a ballotine is something that's hot, okay? So we're essentially just making a ballotine today. We're just doing it in a pig's trotter, okay? So very classic. All right, so just to start this out, can you guys see this here? Yeah? You can see? Yes? Okay, good. So there's a bone right here, okay? And what we want to do is we want to stuff this all the way to the bone. I usually use about 3 sweetbreads, but I'm going to start with the mousse because the mousse, remember, this is our emulsion. This is what's going to bind it, okay? So I'm going to start with that. I'm going to put a sweetbread here. I'm going to do a little bit more mousse. And I'm going to make sure that I have mousse along this top side, because if you don't, you've got the fat and then you've got a very lean protein being the sweetbread, and it's not going to stick, okay? So you guys can see I'm just layering everything in. Little mousse, little sweetbread, a little more mousse, more sweetbread. And I want to get as much into this as I possibly can. And remember, there's egg white in it, so it is going to expand a little bit when we cook, okay? It'll souffle a little bit. If we have to take some out, we'll take some out.
Your guesstimate of how many restaurants or kitchens in America could make something like this today?
I think that every restaurant and kitchens in America absolutely has the capability to do it. I think it's the knowledge that's lacking. That, you know what I mean? I think, you know, look, here's the thing. So I asked you guys earlier as soon as we started today, I said, who knows who Pierre Kaufman is, right? And one person knew. And Rick's actually been in my kitchen. So you've seen our library, right? So in our kitchen, we have this incredible library of books, and they go from the 40s all the way through the 90s, and they're all French cookbooks, like old school French, right? But like Trois Gros, Minot, like really, Escoffier, like really, really amazing books. And this whole thing started, actually, I'm gonna put a little more in here. This dish started on our menu because I asked my kids in my kitchen, I said, does anybody know who Pierre Kaufman is? And nobody knew. And so I said, okay, great. So we're going to make a Pierre Kaufman dish. And because, you know, you guys, we got to learn, right? So ever since then, what we've been doing is their weekly assignment now is they actually go through the library of cookbooks and we make one dish a week. It's not my dish. It's not my, you know, our take on the dish. They're cooking one new dish a week out of those cookbooks from the 40s to the 90s. And they're doing it exactly as those chefs intended it to be, which is really cool because they're learning, I'm learning, you know, these are a lot of really fun things to pull out. All right, so we're gonna fold this. And my trotter's just getting a little cold because I was working a little slow. But you guys see where I'm going with this? Yeah? So I'm going to now transfer it over. I'm gonna show you guys how to roll the ballotine. So we're just gonna move this over here. Okay. If there's any stuffing that comes out, it's totally okay. And you guys saw on the underside, it's not fully closed. That's completely fine, okay? Because remember, this is a mousseline, so we're gonna roll it, and then it's gonna completely set up. So it's the mousse that's gonna keep everything together, all right? So I'm gonna just push this over just a touch. Am I off screen, or you guys can see everything?
Is really complicated, but what to take from this? I mean, Chef Angie she's talked about like 15 different techniques and 36 you gotta know as an addition, and it's like kitchen equal. But if you could do this, or if you knew how to do this, imagine how much easier and how confident you can be at dishes that are less complex.
Yeah.
Yeah,
this is, but when you get down the process, like honestly, guys, there's a lot of different techniques for this, but it's actually not that hard. It really isn't. But once you get this stuff and you're able to cook this stuff, you can do anything. You could think about it. You could do it with fish. You could do it with birds. You could do it with anything, you know? It doesn't have to be a pork trotter. The pork trotter is kind of impressive though. All right, so you guys see how I've just kind of slid this. So I've got butter over here. I've got butter over here, right? You see? Okay, so now I'm going to take this and I'm going to go over. We want a little bit of an overhang, okay? You see? Little overhang. I'm going to put my hand here because we want this to be nice and tight. And I'm just going to pull it back so it's a bit taut, yeah? And now we're going to roll, keeping it tight. Now remember, I'm right-handed, right? So remember, I have the trotter on this side. Okay, so nothing can be pushed out that way because the end of it is over here. So I'm just going to crimp this lightly. Okay, now we're going to let gravity do the work. Okay, so I always hold it like this. And now I'm going to start to spin. Because at the end of the day, do you see how everything's getting a bit taut now? Do you see how it's evening out, right? Okay. But again, we want to let gravity do the work, okay? So everything's going to get pushed this way. Now we're going to flip it, same thing. But do you see how even this is now? Yeah? Okay, so back to the side. I'm just going to feel around because at the end of the day, we want this to be really, really beautiful because we're going to present the whole trotter. So I can feel right here, these are the top of the feet, okay? So I'm going to curl this up here. When we do these at the restaurant, we do them like 20 at a time, okay? Because we sell a lot of these. So at this point, we would either go in the oven, very, very low oven here with like, let's say you know, maybe a hotel pan of water so you get a little bit of steam going, okay? And then we would take it to the internal temp at 131. Or if you wanted to do combi oven, this is where we would put the combi oven in. And I always mark it like with a T so I know where the top of the trotter is. And I'm just gonna push it down just a touch, just so you've got a base, because at the end of the day, when we're presenting it, we don't want the trotter like rolling around, right? So I'm just gonna pop it here. We would put a T there. And then if you guys were going in the combi oven, we would put a probe in it, because then you can just set it to the temperature. We're not gonna put it this way because we don't wanna break the skin, okay? And it's also not as accurate. I would put it in right here through the back, and it would go this way. And then that's when 131, we would take it out, okay? We would take it out, we would take it out of the foil. And then that's when we would actually put it into a cryovac bag and then ice it down to cool so we could get ready for service, okay? Service is all about, especially, you know, how many of you guys have worked in a restaurant before? Yeah, so you know, service is all about organization, quick. You want to make sure everything is like, you want to be prepped for success, right? So we try and really prep ourselves for success. But this is your finished ballotine before we cook it, okay? All right. Now I'm going to show you guys how to finish the whole thing. So I have some pomme puree that we brought from the restaurant. It's a little tight right now, so I'm going to add some milk. So our pomme puree, we use Larat potatoes, which are fingerling. They're a waxy potato. And I love the flavor. I think it's so much better. But you could really use any potato you like. We use the waxy potatoes though, because it's just, I don't know, there's something about the starchy potatoes that, you know, they're fine, but the waxy potatoes are just so much better. I don't know. Chef, do you like the waxy potatoes better? Yeah, you like the rots, right? Yeah. And our pomme puree is like 80% butter, honestly. I think it might be more butter than it is potato at this point. Huh? I love butter. It's amazing. Butter is really, I mean, it's the best, is it not? So I already have heavy cream in here. And I'm using milk though, because what is heavy cream and butter, right? It's fat. So because we've got such a high concentration of fat in here, I need the milk to prevent it from breaking. So there's always a balance. Yeah? Let's see. Hey, Amanda, I think they might have taken my whisk with all the spoons. There was a big container with all the spoons in a whisk back here. It's disappeared. Huh? Thank you. Could I just have just a whisk? That'll be good. So I'm just going milk because I'm going to loosen it up. Oh, that's why. You got me the baby whisk. Thank you. I was asking Chef for baby whisk earlier, and I had these like giant whisks. I didn't realize that you had found them. Thank you, Chef. So I like to use whisks for my pomme puree just because I feel like I can control it a little bit more than a spoon. I also feel that when I use like a spoon or maybe a rubber spatula, I feel like beating it so much it builds up the gluten and then it becomes a little too stretchy for me. So I like the whisk a little bit more. So I'm just gonna let this hang out here. And then, Amanda, could I ask you to ask John to bring me a trotter so I can show these guys how to glaze? So basically, you guys, I'm going to take, this would be like what the braising liquid would be, okay? So I just imagine that we've taken our trotter out of the braising liquid, we've strained out all the vegetables, we've reduced it down. And I'm also going to add more port. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, guys. So this is what our finished trotter looks like. before we start glazing it. Okay. So you can see how sticky it is already, right? All the collagen here. And then you can see on the inside, we have the mousse, we've got the sweetbreads, everything. But this is why I was telling you guys, you see how I wasn't worried that the skin didn't wrap all the way around? Totally fine, it sets up. So at the restaurant on the pickup, what we'll do is we have each trotter individually cryovac. We put it in our circulator at like 120 degrees Fahrenheit, and that's our holding temperature. Nothing that we ever make is ever going to overcook at 120 degrees. Okay, so that's our basic holding temperature at the restaurant. Hollandaise, any aerated sauces, meats, steaks, whatever you want, 120. So John's had this one sitting in the circulator in the back, and I'm just going to add it to my braising liquid. And for this, I use a nonstick pan because I always just want to make sure that the skin is going to be okay. And at this point, I'm just going to baste it and put it in the oven. And I'm going to keep basting it like every maybe minute or so. It's going to go a lot quicker in a combi oven just because we have the fans, but the conventional ovens are fine too. And then while that's going, I'm just going to get our plating ready. You guys have any questions so far about anything? Yes. Well, I do add aromatics when I'm basting if I was like searing a piece of meat. So like, let's say I was, doing lamb chops or a steak, I would absolutely add, thyme, garlic, whatever you want. But this, remember, we've already braised it with all of our mirepoix. So I don't want anything to be too strong. Yeah. Huh? It'll overpower it. Yeah. And this, this is too, like when I add aromatics in for basting, it's usually with fat. So like a butter, an olive oil, whatever, then I'm adding it in because then your aromatics are really going to bloom, right? This is just, we're looking to reduce the liquid and have everything get like really sticky. That's what we actually really want. Yeah. What about you guys? Nothing? No? You guys are a quiet bunch. It's a really cool dish. It's a really cool dish. And like Rick was saying to you guys earlier, it's like if you learn how to do this dish, you can literally do it with anything. If you wanted, you could do it with vegetables. If you wanted to, you could do a ballotine of vegetables, no problem. But it's just really cool. All right, so I'm going to leave the pomme puree because we are ready to go, and I'm just really going to baste it. And then we'll make a sauce a little bit later. So I know this is kind of counterintuitive to what you guys learned here. But all of our stocks for our sauces have no mirepoix in it. So I'm a bit of a purist. So for me, like, you've got your mirepoix, you've got your, the water, the roasted bones, right? So what happens when it's really hot out and, or you've left your carrots in the walk-in and the sugars start to develop? And what if the carrots are like really, really carroty, right? Changes your stock. It changes your finished flavor of your stock, right? What if the onions are really spicy? Changes your stock, right? So for my stocks at the restaurant, we use a base stock of veal and duck. So we make two separate stocks, veal stock, duck stock, and it's only roasted bones and water. That's it. It's just getting like a really, really deep color on the bones, putting them in cold water, letting them just go for hours and hours and hours. And our stock process actually takes like 3 days to do. Because after we're done simmering our stock, we strain it, take everything out, and then we actually rest our stock overnight. Can anybody guess why we do that? No? Okay. Exactly. And the fats. So your impurities, your fats, when you let your stocks rest overnight, everything sits in the walk-in. What happens when it gets cold? Fats rise to the top, they solidify. The next day we come in, we take all of the fats off, and we get this really gorgeous clear stock. After we do that, we actually combine our duck and our veal stock together, and then we reduce it again. And then we let it rest again overnight. We take, again, any fats. If there's any fats that we missed at all, it'll be there. We skim it off the next day once it's solidified. And then that is the base for our sauce. So, you know, there's restaurants that I can almost tell when there's like a thickener in a sauce, because your sauce isn't like that really glossy, clear sauce, right? It almost looks a little foggy, like you've got, you know, like flour, agar, whatever you guys are using to thicken stocks, you know? Huh? A slurry, exactly, yeah. So we don't use any of that. We go through about 500 pounds. This gives you an idea of how crazy we are about our sauces. I have a 10-table restaurant, so 10 tables, 9 bar seats, open 5 days a week. We do 2 turns a night in the dining room, 3 turns at the bar, and I go through 500 pounds of bones a week. It's a lot, right? It's a lot, yeah. But that gives you an idea of how much we're reducing our sauces. So for us, this is why it makes sense for us to not utilize any mirepoix in our base stocks, because you're taking 24 quarts of stock, let's say, and we're going to reduce it down to maybe a quart finished product. And out of a quart of finished product, like reduced stocks, we use that for our sauces, and we're maybe getting, I don't know, about 10, 12 plates out of the quart. It's a lot, right? So that just gives you an idea of why, for us, it's so important to keep everything very pure, because I can't control Mother Nature. I can't control the weather. I can't control any of that. I can't control how the vegetables are going to taste based on the time of year. But what I can control is I can control the bones and the water and the time and how much fat is left in my sauces. And it really just starts with that. It starts with that and really great butter. Okay. All right, let's check it out. So we're still not fully reduced, but you can see everything's getting stickier, okay? And I think for this one, I'm just gonna go ahead and finish it on the stove just to bring it along quicker. This is, in a conventional oven, it's probably gonna take like 20 minutes. Combi oven, it's a 10-minute pickup for us, okay? Because you got the holding temperature in the sous vide, and then here, just to bring it down and glaze it. But I'm going to finish this on the stove for you guys, just so you can see how it comes along. All right. So you see you're bringing it to a boil. Notice there's no butter in here yet. I will finish the sauce with butter for sure. But for right now, we're just going to glaze. So the advantage of using a convection oven or a combi oven is you have a fan. Okay. So when you have the fan going, you're basting your trotter, you've got the fan going, it's automatically gonna reduce the sauce that's on your trotter, and it's gonna get stickier, okay? But we want this to have like a really gorgeous, like lacquered finish to it. So I'm just gonna keep basting. We'll just do it old school. You could also theoretically put it in a salamander, but you would have to like really, really babysit it. Just because you don't want the skin to burn, and this burns very, very easily. Do you see how it's getting thicker and it's getting glossier? It's really nice. And notice how I'm not on direct heat, right, guys? You see I'm not on direct heat? Because I don't want my sauce to burn, but we want it to keep reducing. Because my trotter's already done inside. Everything's cooked. It's at temperature. Really, we're just talking about reducing now. Any questions? No? You guys gonna try and make this at home now? I hope you do. I hope you guys do. Huh? Well, you gotta practice. You gotta practice. You gotta practice. That's it. What? Oh no. You know what? You know the really cool part? Well, you know, the really cool part about the trotters is actually this is very much considered a butcher's cut, right? And, you know, for me, it's like it's expensive in terms of your time. It takes a lot of time and a lot of love on this one. But honestly, this is just like it's really not that expensive. I think we pay maybe like $1.50 a pound for trotters, which is really not bad, is it? When we look at
What would you say the most common mistakes are? Are there ways to salvage them?
You know, I think that I've got like the Julia Child approach. There's always a way to salvage something. But the common mistake with this one is overcooking the mousse. Okay. Because it's really the trotter, it can stand up to a lot. Do you see how thick this is getting, you guys? See how gorgeous that is? So the trotter can stand up to a lot. The mousse is what's most delicate because again, it's an emulsion. Okay. So the mousse is really the toughest thing. Is it possible, Amanda, to get a cutting board? I've used all my cutting boards. Thank you. So at the restaurant, I like to keep a towel that's damp because this is a very, very, very sticky dish. And again, it's sticky because remember I was talking about all that collagen. And I actually like to put, thank you so much, Chef. I actually like to serve this dish with the whole foot too, because that's what we should do, right? So I keep a damp towel here for my knife and for my hands. And we are going to just move the trotter over. I'll show you guys how we plate it. So I'm going to give it one last base. You see, just as it cools, because there's so much and by the way, this is the stock that we brought this is the sauce that we actually brought from the restaurant. So you can see as it cools, you can see how sticky it's getting, right? All right, so let's move this. So this is a bit delicate, so I'm just going to go under. Okay. So I usually just cut the end off here. I wipe my knife in between. So you can see, you saw how much milk I added. You asked me about the milk. You saw how much milk I added, right? And you see it start to seize up already, right? So for this dish, I like it to be a little softer. So I'm just going to add a touch more milk on the pickup. There's enough butter in here, so I'm not going to add any more. Yeah. No, I add salt. They came here already seasoned. Do you need a Roboku to do this recipe? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because you want to get your mousse really, really fine, you know? All right, so I'm going to move this over here. And you guys see the cross sections now? You've got your morels, you've got your sweetbreads, you've got the mousse, yeah? It's really gorgeous. This one, our skin fell off, so I'm just going to get rid of it. So do you guys see how thick that is? Yeah? You guys see how thick that is? I'm going to add just a touch of stock just to thin it out. And cube of butter. So we just want our sauce just to be in a bun. And you notice I'm gonna spin it around so you'll see what it looks like from guest perspective. But when I plate, I always plate things as if it were what you guys are gonna see, okay? All right. So at the restaurant, we actually do this sauce tableside. Voilà. Yeah. Bon appétit. Chef, c'est ça pour vous, hein? Yeah? Yes. Only if Chef is with me. Come on. Because he loves offal meat as much as I do.
I need to come to a business.